Good day and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, today is going to be the special discussion that I've been promising, the discussion on the special fleets that you are now going to be using now that we're breaching T7 and we have the freighter ships basically. So, because a lot of players have reached that level where they're running in millions of resources a day, and it means that it's going up and down between large distances because they're mining and refining, and then they're using one player to scoop it and move it. A lot of players have started to attack and fleet against them. So this video is going to be discussing how can you counteract those particular fleets as a industry corp, what you need to do, how many PvP players you need to go with you, and what ships to use. And after I'm done with that, I'm going to explain what needs to be done for the PvP players who want to raid these fleets. Okay, so first of all, um, before we get into the main discussion, I'd like to ask you to please leave a like or comment on my video and consider subscribing to my channel. And if you don't like the video, leave a dislike. Okay, so that's going to be it on that part. So let's get into this. How do you make the freighting fleet? So the freighting fleet will mean every freight ship that you are running must have two escorts, and one ship in your fleet has to be a scout. So a frigate scout to be a little bit faster than everybody else to get ahead of you one sector at a time. So how does this fleet work? What is your formation going to be? What are you going to do? Now, you're going to run a standard PvP attack, a standard attack build on your vessel, and you are then going to run a standard. Sorry about that. You're going to run a standard frigate vessel with more attachments for making sure it can carry out that large transportation. Okay, so let's discuss how you're going to form it up. Two battle cruisers or two cruisers to each frigate. So you're going to keep them close by. They're running in that formation. Two to each frigate. That means they form a group of three. So you can at max transport three frigates. So that's three frigates being transported, six attack vessels, or six heavily shielded vessels to go with it, and one vessel scouting ahead to tell you what's in the next sector. Now, this is how you're going to run it. You can just autopilot and run, and everybody can move at a similar pace. Uh, but the frigate has to run about half a sector ahead of everybody else so that they can tell you what's coming up in the next sector. So, say for example, the frigate decides to jump through and he finds 10 ships at a gate which is one sector ahead. You can immediately stop when you enter the sector because you're going to pause your stuff as you're jumping through the gate. He's reaching that gate to jump through the next one. So you've paused while you were jumping through. You enter into the next sector and you divert yourself away from the sector. You turn around, you move around the sector. He'll tell you what there is and what you need to worry about. If he jumps through a gate and he tells you there's enemies waiting on the other side, that means that you will fall back more than one gate. You're going to pause before you enter the gate. And then you might even consider taking a route around to try and get away from that sector. Okay, so basically it's attack build ships and a fast frigate or a fast destroyer jumping through the gates to get ahead of everyone. Alright, next up on that whole list and what you're going to need to have is you are going to need to occupy space in a certain manner because of the resources that you're moving. Now, some of the best production buildings are in the low sec, and some of the best resource mining areas are in the low sec. So, a station close to where you're mining is where you're going to dump most of your resources. You need to make sure that you know who's in that sector. Make sure that you aren't on enemy terms with them if you're going to be docking your resources there. Because even with this formation of six fighting vessels, remember you're not running support, you're not running tanks, you're only running standard attack vessels because you want to deter anybody from taking on your frigates. And there's six of you all together so that any small fleet can be taken out. You have to avoid big fleets. So that's how you are going to run if you are doing an escort of resources or an escort of industrial transportation. So that's how you do the escort. Now I did it yesterday where it was just two players doing the escort. So I was jumping ahead at least less than half warp ahead of the other player. It wasn't due to any fault on his side or my side. We both just agreed that it would be better if we kept that small distance between us. So keeping half a sector between us. If we arrived at a gate that had that stuff, we could instantly have it rerouted or activate our autopilot into another sector, which would turn us back. So that was the whole idea. And me being so far ahead was if I arrive at the gate and they all there in offensive mode, they're gonna try and jam me. I'm gonna lose a ship which is cheaper and easier to afford because I was just running a trainer, Caracal trainer with low level equipment on it. And that was all that I was going to do. I was just going to take the fire for a little bit, let them destroy me, and let him get away. And that's how you have to play it. You have to remember that there are small little sectors which you have to be careful of while you're running through on fleeting activities. Okay, now if you are running the PvP fleet to take on such fleets, this is the best idea for you to do. You hold one vessel as a scout at each gate, and so that means overall your fleet is going to be made up of three scouts or four scouts, depending how many gates there are in your sectors. But you're generally going to do it in a very low sector where there's only like two or three gates. Now, you're going to set your fleet to share equal bounties because whoever is running those frigates isn't going to be able to destroy ships. And what you are going to do is you, as the player with the attack vessels, are going to hide away in the sector either with an anomaly or any other thing close to one of the two exiting gates if it's a two uh, gate system. If it's a three gate system. If it's a two gate system, you will find somewhere in the center an anomaly or a planet and you will hide out your entire fleet over there. That's eight vessels. And the moment either one of your scouts picks up a ship coming through, a scout ship, you will actually warp your entire fleet to the next gate. Because obviously, if you're in a two sector fleet, you can just go to the next gate and you're already there, you're ready. And by the time the rest of that fleet comes through, you're going to warp disrupt them. You're going to aim at the industrial vessels. The reason why you're aiming for this period in between is you want to try and get them when their guard is down. Remember, while they're jumping through, you can't pull them out of autopilot, and it will also disengage the jump command. So you have the chance to blow those frigates out instantly in that time. So that means it's all focused on one frigate, destroy it, and let everybody run. And once they are destroyed, you can have another player coming through with industrial ship in the same class to pick up all the ore or all the minerals or resources, and that's how you are going to benefit from taking on these large groups. Okay, so moving on to the next thing to look out for. If you are running these fleets, there is another problem that you may run into, and this is going on to the next step of running into a sector with too many gates. Like if there's four gates, that means that there's only six of you attacking. That means you're a perfect match for a fleet that is running perfect transport. Remember, I'm saying perfect transport, but say for example they're only running two vessels, they're going to have heavier firepower. And if it's just one vessel that they're trying to transport through, they're going to have even heavier firepower and they won't run the scout ahead of them. They're going to run with the fleet. That means all nine are attack vessels. They're going to have defense, support, everything over there. You don't stand a chance even if you're in your attack fleet because you're just going in for the attack and you're holding out gates with destroyers or frigates. So, because you're using small ships to scout all of the gates, that's where you lose. And that's why this play requires you to ambush only the frigates in between the jumps. Remember, you need to block off the gate and you need to be extremely fast on engaging your warp disruptors. You need to be in the optimum spot in that gate so that you can catch anybody who's coming through getting ready to jump. and you need to know which path they're using. Remember, you need to intercept their path. That means if you're going through a straight sector where there's two gates, you need to make sure that you're on a straight path so that you end up in the central location. You don't want to end up on the sides of the gate, because if you end up on the sides of the gate, you're going to be something like 50 kilometers away. You need 25 kilometers to activate a warp disruptor, and a warp disruptor will still pull you out of autopilot at the moment. Okay, so that's how you're going to exploit it. It is an exploit at the moment in the game that you can pull a player out of autopilot at the gate. It was only meant for you to pull players out of autopilot when they try to run away from you in combat, because the autopilot is to negate the warp disruptors and allow them to get away instantly. Okay, so I explained the basics of this. This is how you're going to be running industry transport fleets and PvPing industry transport fleets. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you.